Today's live stream is Human Renaissance, Observation, and Experience. And this is an important chapter in our work, in Human Renaissance work, in Tantra coaching, in Tantra therapy, is to learn, to discern, to distinguish observation and experience, and to develop an ability to switch between these two aspects of our cognition and the perception of reality, where we need to be an observer and where we need to be the one who experiences. This is much more important topic than it may seem on the first glance, because our reactions are automations. When we experience things and we output automatic reactions, when we do not have an observer. At the same time, if a person becomes too much of an observer, or they develop an observer of a judgmental kind, of a kind that criticizes, of a kind that has very rigid concepts, then a person will not be able to give in to the experiences. And this becomes one of the cornerstones of a variety of trauma that is related to human sexuality, that is related to human self-expression. This is why it is a very important body of work to familiarize yourself with your observer, with the one in yourself who experiences, purely experiences things, to allow yourself to experience things and not just react, not respond, not analyze, not judge, not look from the outside. Develop that part such that you actually can enjoy life, because without that, you're not able to enjoy life. And the opposite thing, if we completely remove our analytical part, our observer, then we're not going to be able to build certain strategic things. We're not going to be able to build complex structures. Hence, we're not going to be able to create anything in the modern world that will help us to acquire resources efficiently, to build some, again, secure, solid framework. We'll not be able to realize our talents as well if we aren't capable of building this observer and applying it in the proper spot. This is why today's topic is observer and the one who experiences. And this topic is much broader than that. Observation and experience are big parts, but if we go into more fine-tuning of this process, we will identify that there are many roles that we have in life. And sometimes also our brain just clings on to one role and tries to use it for different life scenarios. Is it efficient? I don't think so. A good example, very stereotypical perhaps example, lady boss. She's a woman who learned to be fully in her ambition. She's a woman who really succeeds at work, who is really capable of leadership. Perhaps she does it a little bit out of trauma. Perhaps she runs away from something within her to seek this ambitious, to seek this very pushy lifestyle. But nevertheless, this is the very strong dominant, this is a very strong archetype that she is embodying and living through. When she's in this archetype, is she going to fully enjoy the experiences of vacation? Is she going to fully enjoy the experiences of surrendering to certain sensual pleasures, to enjoying food? If she is, hello everyone who joins. Thank you so much for checking in the chat. Let me know if you can hear me well, if sound quality is good. Will she be able to really experience her body fully if she is just automated and fixed on this one archetype that she's living through? It's unlikely. It requires a lot of work. And it requires awareness to actually allow yourself, create, organize the domain using this analytical part, using this observer part, to build a framework in which it is safe for the psyche to actually surrender to the experiences. When we think about Tantra therapy, when we think about recovery and walking away, leaving behind, let's say, certain sexual trauma, it's the same process, it's the same thing. Human psyche must employ both the observer and the experiential part, the observer will be creating the safe framework for the person to let go of their trauma. But actually letting go of the trauma will be on the purely experiential level. When we think about the experiential part and observer part, when we think about different archetypes, when I switch efficiently from role to role, when I'm able to pivot, when I'm able to organically enter the proper role, when I'm able to switch from observer to the one who experiences, who just senses without any judgment, what skills does it require us to have? And how is this work approached through Tantra coaching? Let's talk about it. First thing that we need to develop is the ability to switch. The ability to switch focus. The ability to pull certain roles, certain quality of our psyche on demand when we need them. And to do this efficiently, we need to, on the one hand, we need to be a master of focus, not only to deepen our focus, for example, or diffuse our focus. It is the work of being able to be fluid with focus. Right now I'm focusing on one thing, then I am able to efficiently locate my focus to some other thing on demand when I want to do this, when I feel it's appropriate to do that. I'm able to move my focus. I'm able to do the surfing when I can pick things out, and when necessary, I can relocate my focus in the other realm, into something else. And this is the first very simple skill, on the one hand, that is very trainable, that is very actually easy to train just for anyone. I'm not going to say anything, guys. I know what the people who are in the chat writing letter 67, I mean, I know where you're coming from, but let's not turn it into this game. So when we think about the work with focus, the simplest exercises can be found in the daily life. Anyone right now can start training their focus and switching of focus. For example, you can put two objects, you can grab two objects, or you can have, like, I know, something warm and something cold in your fists, and you can start locating focus. One side, the other side, or object, another object. And then, as we start going about this exercise, we can start locating more attention into one object, less attention to another object. We can start doing this gradation. For example, I locate 30% of my focus here, 70% of my focus there. And then 50-50, split it 50-50. Then 100% of focus, 0% of focus here. The same can be done with physical sensations. Same can be done with distance work. For example, I see something in my close proximity, something far away, and how do I retain focus on both things? Or when there is, for example, a crowd, and there is someone in the crowd, and I can both focus on the crowd and I can focus on this one person. Bring awareness to your focus can be the first step of this training, of being able to switch very rapidly. And again, you can employ objects, you can employ your body, you can employ so many different tools to play around with the skill. Then, when it comes to the work of archetypes, this is when it gets a little bit more individualized, and that's where it gets more complex. And this work requires us to be very, very thorough, because not everyone is aware of the archetypes that are accessible to them. And the archetypes can be reframed as the functions, as tools of our psyche. There are some pre-made things, some pre-made concepts that our psyche is naturally drawn to, positively or negatively, and we can create a whole library of them. What's in your neck? On my neck is in the scarf. I just put it sideways because I don't want the tips of it to interfere with the microphone. So when we think about the archetypes, this is our library of things that are accessible for our psyche. This is our tools, our mental tools. As I mentioned before, Lady Boss, she's very efficient at work. But if Lady Boss only knows this boss girl energy, if she's only comfortable in this boss girl energy, of this hyper control, of this very pushy energy, very active, very oftentimes restless, she will unlikely be able to live this way sustainably her entire life, and also she will not be capable of indulging in the whole spectrum of pleasures and the whole spectrum of experiences in other areas of life. This is why it's important for example, some lady boss to go through the process of uncovering other tools that exist in her. What is she running away? Perhaps this lady boss will tell me at the consultation. She comes to me, to Human Renaissance, and she says that I am a kick-ass woman. I built a very successful business, or I'm very high in the corporate ladder. And she, for example, she feels unable to enjoy life. Nothing brings her satisfaction. And in this session, we will start thinking about different images, different associations with womanhood, with in general, like human experience. And she may start telling how she objects some woman who is very fluid, who is very relaxed, who is very in her element, who is lazy, who doesn't do anything, who is just very, very sensual, who is capable, who is like this, you know, very like erotically embodied. And this lady will be feeling disgust to this archetype. She will be likely describing it with a lot of, on the one hand, passion, on the other hand, with a lot of disgust. Because there's something so gross in this woman who just is, who is very biological perhaps, who is very sensual, sensually awakened. Why is she doing that? It's such a disgusting role. It's so primitive. It's so off-putting. There's a realm where you can really shine, where you can be this human, where you can be this powerful creative entity. How do you diminish yourself to that animalistic female? That's gross. So this lady may present this very charged attitude towards the archetype that appears as opposite to the boss girl, to the lady boss, to this powerful, career-oriented, leadership, powerful woman. And she'll feel this disgust. And this is exactly where we're going to start working on this project, unfolding it. Because there will be this easy route for me, as a coach, as a tantra therapist. I will instantly pick on this role. Why is this biological, sensual woman, embodied woman, so gross? Why is it sitting outside of your scope of perception? How can we functionalize it? How can we turn this hierarchy from this is a good, familiar, strong, creative, socially acceptable role of boss girl? It sits above, it's so good. But then there is this gross biological woman who is capable, who is so like this sensual life, sensual pleasure, who prioritizes that, who is lazy, who's beautiful, who speaks so softly, deeply, with this like stretch in her voice. She's there, she's gross. We need to flip this hierarchy and make them equal. And this is the first step of this work of finding all the archetypes, bringing them from the so-called shadow, from underneath the floor, from some like basement, from some storage, where something gross is stored. Something appealing but gross sits. We need to bring it in this lateral assortment as opposed to hierarchy. We flip it up. Now, when we identify this super bright conflict, this super conflicted role, the next step is to identify more things. What are other facets that you like or that you dislike, sharply dislike, that we can fill this gallery with? What are those things? What are those possibilities that are sitting in your mind, in your psyche? Something where a lot of energy is stored. Energy of disgust, resentment, objection. For example, I had a story with my client they had an archetype of a woman who was very aggressive, was very loud, very explosive, and violent. But then the person was so repelled by that archetype of this super loud, aggressive woman that the person could not allow herself the loud voice. And loud voice, strong voice, in general, the self expression is very important for leadership. It is very important to lead the crowd. It's very important to be a public speaker. It is very important to having a business. It's very important to leading people, managing people. It's really important. But because there was this resentment towards that disgusting, aggressive, cruel, violent woman who was channeling all of these qualities, using all of those qualities of loud voice, of claiming like being pushy, being strong. She used it to be aggressive towards a child. That's why this archetype got completely suppressed because all it's associated with is this disgusting, absolutely traumatizing behavior. And so we need to find the function to every behavior like that and how it can apply to a given person. What is good about it? Can we try just a little bit? Can we put it on? Can we experiment with that? But then usually people come up with a ton, with a multitude of things. And of course, the most comfortable part of this work of uncovering all the archetypes would be finding the plus sign archetypes. Because even this lady boss, even this lady will have certain facets that she might not be exercising on a daily basis, might not be aware of, might not be using, might not be tapping into, might not be servicing on a daily, but that she likes, that she genuinely likes and is comfortable with. So this will be this work of getting familiar, getting acquainted with the archetypes. And of course, the most interesting, the most charged, energetically rich archetypes will be the ones that cause resentment, that cause objection, that cause disgust in a human. They likely are related to some trauma. Because in women especially, it's a commonplace thing. The initiation into womanhood doesn't happen in our society. And in the societies where it does happen, oftentimes it happens through not so pleasant, not through so celebratory things. And even compared to boys, entering the womanhood for women is associated with pain. So the first thing that a girl feels when she enters puberty is pain. Everything that happens in female body during puberty is through pain, through some discomfort, through something that's not really accepted in the society comfortably either. So initiation in womanhood is becomes a very conflicting, very difficult moment. And if, for example, girl is raised in the family in which women are not embodied themselves, if women themselves don't allow themselves this adult sexuality, adult femininity, then the girls will reflect on that. They will live with this conflict because why am I going through all of that? What is this all for? They don't quite understand, they don't quite connect with their body. And especially with the modern lifestyles where girls cannot go through puberty naturally because of so many hormonal disruptors, with so many deviations in the diet, with this carbohydrate dominated diets that wreck the hormones in girls. This becomes a huge issue. It's very difficult for a growing girl to realize what is it about. What is this womanhood about? What is that? If it's only pain, and then they hear the stories from women, how they suffered through birth. Like I think most children heard from their moms how their moms suffered in birth. So everyone carries this guilt and fear at the same time, and this conflict with that the apex of female sexuality, which ends like in this biological manifestation as birth, is inherently suffering. All of these things, they create blockages on the way of embodied femininity. Womanhood in general, entering womanhood and working through all of those archetypes, through all archetypes that actually are associated with the positives and the benefits of being a woman, those things, they become blocked. A girl cannot access them if she doesn't step on the path of challenging literally every narrative about womanhood that exists in the society. When she goes from within. Because a lot of female archetypes are being judged. A lot of female archetypes are not good. A lot of them are controversial. A lot of them are mystical. Even nowadays, they're mystical because there's no open, clear knowledge about them. They're mystified. And so, this is why a lot of women live with this. They can adapt to living in the reduced range, in their reduced range, in the reduced emotional range, reduced physical, sensual range. But they enhance their intellectual part. And this is also my specialty, to work with such women who embrace their intellectual development, who embrace their leadership, who embrace their super strong and pushy side. And when this shift happens, they receive a lot of reward from the society, but it never gives them this satisfaction, and they still live in this conflict with their biological side, because biological side is buried with other archetypes in the realm of something disgusting, something gross. Why does it have to be this way? Why? And because there are generations and generations and generations of oppressed women, this is just getting passed down on every next generation of girls. And what women do, they go to pharma, they literally turn themselves into the they become patients. As a result of womanhood, literally the fact that it's not a man but a woman, this difference, this delta, turns woman oftentimes into a patient. Because as a teenager, to cope with the symptoms, instead of rebelling against the social narrative, women will go to the doctor, will request a pill to normalize hormones, to normalize to some whatever norm. Then when it comes time to reproduction, a woman will just surrender that side of hers to the medical system as well. So everything that gives woman this completeness adds this biological completeness, adds this sensual part, body-tied part, oftentimes just turns into something that women want to outsource. And this outsource is opposite of actually taking responsibility and looking at the world from within, from everything that I have, from everything that that forms my ultimate strength, that gives me my opportunity to be self-governed. And I made the video, I have it on my channel, Self-Governance for Women, motivating that choice to self-govern. Because there's no entity, there's no narrative that can satisfy you in life, that can give you the sense of living fully embodied. But the tools, how to actually do it, is what I'm discussing right now. The tools for how to become a fully embodied woman or human in general. I'm just using an example of women because this is the category in which there is a very blatant conflict between the woman that fits in the society and the woman that lives embodied, the woman that is outsourcing herself, and the woman who feels from within, the woman who turns herself into an object, as opposed to a woman who is a subject, a woman to whom life happens versus a woman who creates life and lives life. And when we extrapolate it to all humans, to men included, to different professions, it also it has the same implications, same methods, same everything. But again, just for clarity, I'm using this example. So we work with archetypes, and we start uncovering, I am a working person, I dress beautifully, I'm very clean, I'm very disciplined, I know what I'm doing. And then there's this side, this animal, oh my god, with all of this biology, with some cyclical nature, this like meowing and purring woman. How gross! How to put it all together? Because this is where you try. For example, you can be this pushy woman, you can be this socially acceptable archetype of a woman. You can try living through that your entire life. It will not bring you anywhere. Thank you, guys. Biological women XX are the best type, even though they're all a bit nuts. I wouldn't say all a bit nuts. I mean, it's categorizing as women and saying that they're all nuts compared to what? I mean, everybody. By your logic, everyone will be nuts. I heard this discourse about women and men, and one person on YouTube was talking about how women are nuts, and how poor men, they will not possibly be able to find a woman to be understood by. But then, when you think about it, intellectual men, very strong, creative, intellectual men, will hardly find it possible to converse with a fellow man as well from the street. So it's not a gender thing. It's the matter of what choices people would make, and their genetics, and whether they actually pursue their path or they don't. A lot of people don't, and they live in the stereotypes, and they embody stereotypes. To not embody the stereotypes, you need to put some effort. You need to, first of all, of course, parents need to enable that. Parents need to ensure that their child can live outside of stereotype and can live really multifaceted, rich life. And then it is up to a human to stick with that attitude later in life. Or if their parents didn't give it to them, then give it to themselves. And develop the entire life without any like nonsense that's being propagated that brain stops developing here, then brain stops developing there. No, brain is always developing, we're always developing, life is development, and revealing our skills, overcoming something, going through developmental stress in order to live full, complete life and expand our sphere of influence and fully realize our genetic potential. Because this is our like evolutionary role per se. This, as of my belief, and that's what forms the foundation of human renaissance. That human renaissance is about the human who lives completely. But then when we think about it, complete life nevertheless cannot be complete without being embodied, without being in tune with the body, because body is the source. Body is what enables all this to happen. Healthy biochemistry, what enables it all to happen. And when we think about that, a person has a conflict with certain archetype of theirs, with certain tools that or triggers that their psyche has, when there is some conflict, it creates a barrier. And every barrier, I will be using I'll be using a little bit of physical notion. Every barrier can be regarded as an impurity in the conductor. For example, you have a wire, electrical wire, or you have fiber optics. When you start putting some impurities there, harmful impurities, they become scattering centers. Energy just dissipates. So instead of conducting current flawlessly, you are going to be dissipating energy. And when energy dissipates, you are no longer able to conduct properly, you're no longer able to realize your potential, you're no longer able to realize you're no longer able to realize your ideas effectively, your creative ideas. This is why such thing, for example, again, this example with Lady Boss, who's fully into her archetype of Lady Boss, as opposed to being a lady boss where it applies, and then being a sensual, being very embodied biological woman, having no conflict here, but having all of those energies flowing flawlessly, will work seemingly as a battery for this woman. Because then, when there's no conflict, when there's pleasure here, efficiency here, joy, living in the moment, creative expression, what else am I capable of? When this comes in harmony, then you start just pumping energies. You start pumping creative ideas more efficiently. It's a really enriching process. This is why there's such an emphasis on working with the archetypes. Let me see the chat. Have you ever used lucid dreaming to break mental barriers and self-limiting beliefs? No, I didn't. I do meditation, which is similar to lucid dreaming, but I do my method. One of the methods that I work on myself and how I work with the clients is walk through the psyche. With a guide, it's much easier because if a person doesn't have a skill of snapping in and out of meditation, then it's easy for them to work with the guide. Plus, also the guide can highlight, can give certain perspective. So that's why it's an interesting method. But for myself, I also use walk through the psyche, and I do it in a slightly different way. But basically I do meditation. That is, I have a piece of paper, for example, to take notes. So I go in and out of meditation, like flip, flip, flip. So I practice different things. Your accent is cute, Betty. Thank you, guys. Thank you, chat. So you can feel free to ask questions. Our topic today, observer and the one who experiences. So this variability of roles. And also I'm expanding it to the work with archetypes and work with focus. So the process. So the title of this live stream is observer and the one who experiences. And as I mentioned in the very beginning, the distinction between the two and being able to switch between the two is highly important in solving a multitude of life problems, the same way we switch between archetypes. Because this is where our efficiency lies. We cannot, for example, a person experienced some sexual trauma in the moment, let's say something more or less benign, something that did not impart a lot of like physical distress on the person, but just in the moment somebody said something that snapped them out of being able to experience intimacy from within, just flawlessly, like in heavenly, like paradise state, when it's just a pure bodily experience, body mind experience, where you are fully in it, you're fully from within it. Sometimes there could be, like, for example, words of criticism or something that invites a person into performative perception of intimacy. It being said to the person in the process, suddenly they fall from the Garden of Eden, and now they're aware, oh, this is all happening to me, and they are no longer able to enjoy intimacy from within. It stops being a pure experience from within the experience, and it invites some entity in the middle, the judge. This is a harmful form of an observer. Because do we need a judge? Do we need a critic? Do we need some foreign eyes in this moment? I bet no. And this critic, it sits in the head, it creates blockages in the body. Pleasure is gone. The ability to fully surrender to pleasure is gone. Experiences are blocked. Because now, there is a judge, there is a critic, there is an observer who creates physical blockages because it's no longer safe. The role of this observer is to protect a person from being re-traumatized. So they create the block, they close the body from the experience that led to the trauma initially, and they play their function. Yeah, it's a very functional thing. But then a person moves on. The traumatic events are no longer happening to them. They change their relationship. In the new safe relationship with good dialogue, they're still unable to surrender to the experiential part. There's always an observer in the middle. What to do in this case? The skill of turning into the one who experiences needs to be developed, and it's simply exercise. Plus, of course, with other tools, methods, working with conceptual and understanding all of this on the side. But at the core, there is a need to remove the observer, to bring it to purity of the experience. Thank you. Great, good vibes, positive nature face. Thank you. Are you covering what? No, I'm not sure about it. What are you even talking about? Do you even know what you're talking about? Yes, I know what I'm talking about. If you have any questions, if you also want to know what I'm talking about, you can schedule a session with me, Human Renaissance. You can also ask your questions that are related to the topic of our today's conversation, and we can discuss it in detail. So this has a huge relevance for such experiences. But then other other life experiences are no different. If you, for whatever reason, put in a permanent observer some judge in your head, someone who controls you at all times, some critic in your mind, how are you going to enjoy food? How are you going to enjoy a walk? How are you going to enjoy anything in life if everything passes through this uh, this viewer, this critic, this judge? So for when it comes to actually experiencing life, to being fully in the experiences, being able to experience joy, to experience laughter, to experience any pleasure, even to surrender to creative flow, this is when the observer should be gone. But what people do, let's see, the psyche that went through some turmoil in life, that got traumatized, that encountered certain experiences, that accumulated lots of stresses and a lot of the impressions of dysfunctional life situations. What happens to this person? Their body, their psyche, demands an observer, demands a guard. Please guard me. Guards the person from the experiences. And then, when the observer is actually needed, when the observer is actually useful, it's not going to play its role. So, the person will lose strategic attitude in the areas where the strategic attitude is needed, such as anything with building structures, anything that's required to build some frameworks, social relationships, career, organizing the structure in which person can be creative, organizing the structure in which the experiences happen. The person is unable to exercise their observer, their judge, critic, the entity that applies some discernment to the process. And instead, this critic will be employed inside of the experiences, setting the barrier between human and experiences because of the various traumatic events or events that challenge psyche, that show psyche that it's unsafe, it's uncomfortable, it's bad, protect, protect, protect. So this protective attitude encapsulates here in the experiences. But oftentimes, person would not be using the observer, the entity with discernment, the judge, where it's needed. Where it's needed for building something sturdy, building something of high quality, regarding their work from the other side. Because it will be very scary. It would feel like, for example, if I'm criticizing my work to make it better, it doesn't feel like I'm criticizing my work to make it better. It will feel like I need to protect myself. The observer will be protecting my psyche from getting criticized. Instead of taking this observer and letting them criticize your own work from the outside without any inhibitions, because you feel safe in this experience, you'll be protecting yourself from getting criticized. So it will be a misplacement of the observer, of the judge, of the critic. You put it where it does not work right. This is why when we hear about that, for example, psychotherapy trains you to develop an observing self. It's a very important thing when it comes to, for example, dealing with a conflict. We don't want just pour a bunch of negativity into our partner. We don't want to say things that in the heat of the moment can slip out of our tongue. We don't want to do that, perhaps, or we want to change our behavior. So from certain automations, we need to switch to different automations, different behaviors. This is when we employ the observer through the psychotherapist. Psychotherapist becomes our first, or tantra therapist becomes our first observer, showing us where this automation can be changed. Then we become observer ourselves, and then we change this process. But the goal is, the side effect of this may be that you will just get stuck with this observer. You'll get stuck with this judge, with this regulatory entity. And this may be a side effect of psychotherapy. And this is where we need to work on teaching a client We need to work on reestablishing the ability to enjoy the experiences again. This is where it's very important to move the person from control, from suddenly, like, being very empowered. At first feels really empowered when person is working with a therapist. They feel very empowered that, wow, I am now controlling certain experiences. I'm now seeing, I'm observing them. But then later, what happens is that the person just gets stuck in that. And they start having concepts about their thoughts, about everything that happens in their life. And this is where we need to step in. And this is where we need to understand that therapy is not over. Now we need to train the person to experience things again. This is where we need to work on the experiential self. Here to distinguish, for example, experiential self and the observer self. We can experiment with just mere breathing. Do an inhalation. You can inhale the air. And what can happen? You can start questioning, why am I inhaling? How am I inhaling? Where am I inhaling? What is happening right now? Inhalation. What is inhalation? How does it work? Or, from full experiential side, you will just register that you are inhaling. There will be no verbal context to it. There will be nothing complex about it. You will just focus that, you will just feel that inhalation. You will observe the process. You will feel the process. Part of you will be, but there will be no judgment to it. But if you, for example, are asked now to inhale air, use like with breaks, like within 3 consecutive like breaks, or exhale with like a hedgehog, like that. This is when your controls will come into place. And what happens in the case of trauma, for example, this attitude of not being able to inhale easily, but to employ some way of controlling this process or turning it into some pattern, will become automatic. It will stick to your unconscious. It will be basically sitting. It will happen. This attitude, this controlling, switching thing, will be already sitting by the time your consciousness can register it. It will be already there. Because your body and conscious collectively, they ignite those experiences right away. And what to do in this case is to practice the experiential part of yourself or your psyche as much as possible, and not necessarily in the areas where the trauma happened. We're not jumping into uncovering the traumatic things. We're not jumping into those targets, because those targets, like setting it as a target, will create the feeling that it is attacked again. It's unsafe again. That's why in tantra we start with the work of regulating nervous system, balancing parasympathetic and sympathetic nervous system. This is the primary thing. Because living in the state of chronic stress is the main factor of numbness, of building those shields to begin with. And then when we in general get in touch with this balance, when we're balanced, we can start moving closer to the part that actually took the hit of the traumatic event. The chat is discussing very intricate subjects. I'm not gonna read it, guys. So if you have any questions, let's discuss something related to our topic today. So to become this, just to sum up this sentiment, is to become an experiential human, we need to primarily remove the obstructions on the way of our experiences, because our experiential side is the most natural side, and everything that sits on top of it, that creates the observer, can become an impediment on the way of, first of all, our energy efficiency, our creative efficiency, and on the way of our ability to experience life. That's why so many people end up not feeling alive. they reach certain age, they go through certain events. The moment their brain stops being stimulated, they don't feel alive anymore. They sit down like this in their living room, and they will fail to feel alive. Because instead of being connected with their experiential part, they're fully stuffed with concepts, fully stuffed with the psychological defenses that also manifest in the physical defenses and armor, basically. A lot of the body parts, a lot of the parts of the human will be in the armor. And this armor doesn't allow the flow of a flow. The flow illustration, actually, I want to illustrate such that it's not just feel some woo-woo thing. The good example will be, imagine something that's super easy for you to do. Something that you're cheerful to do. Imagine that you just get up and go and do it. Without any thought. You're jumping in the experience right there. And it feels easy and pleasant. As opposed to stumbling upon a thought. Like you have, for example, some concept about doing something. Let's say you want to incorporate more movement. Let's say you want to do 10 squats. If you think about it, I need to do 10 squats. You start thinking about 10 squats. You start analyzing 10 squats. The image is already born in your head. 10 squats. How it feels. Doing 10 squats. Then, what worse though, you will tell someone, I want to do 10 squats. Now person is like, oh, 10 squats. Adds their concept to you. Now you have their view. They reflected that heaviness about doing 10 squats to you. They reflected back. And you're like, oh, the barrier just grew to being this tall. Yeah, 10 squats. Then you're like, oh my god, I need to send this document to someone. But I need to do 10 squats. And you keep adding to this. And it becomes bigger and bigger. And then you're like, oh, but I need to drink something before I do 10. Prepare a drink before I do 10 squats. The document. But it's already late afternoon. Maybe I'll do it after dinner. Kinda hungry. 10 squats. From just doing 10 squats, effortlessly turned into a mountain. And this is the opposite of that. But this is opposite, but with consciousness involved. You consciously make it difficult. The harder part is, this is why I work with a tantra therapist or psychotherapist or body-oriented therapist or sexologist, is how to do it when it becomes unconscious. When 10 squats are associated with the block that happens before you even can think any thought about it. I don't know, I feel like saying a straw only has one hole is like saying a sedan only has one door. I don't know, guys, what you are all about. So, yay! Good comment. So, I've always wanted to learn more about Tantra. Tips for learning with sedentary office work. Yes, absolutely. You can start again. Tantra, I want you to know what currently you associate with Tantra and what you imagine to gain from it. Is there any issue that you want to resolve with Tantra? If you drop it in the comments, it will be much easier for me because I will give you a more focused answer, more practical answer. And I can give you the list of practices that you can start employing. With sedentary office work, Tantra is, you can absolutely use a multitude of physical practices. You can do anything related with mobility. There are no boundaries in terms of the practice design, but mostly it is the biggest bulk of tantric work is relaxation, and then working with relaxation and activation, and then also relaxation not in the way, you know how people, let me give you a good illustration. If you right now tell to a working person that we're going to master relaxation, a working person who is generally exhausted, who lives in a state in which they're sleep deprived, for example, or just normal rest deprived, For them, relaxation will be associated with, so I can just lay down and sleep, for example, for 48 hours or something. Or I want to just go receive massage and fully relax my body. This is what relaxation will sound to a person who is very physically and mentally exhausted. So when we think about Tantra, it feels like, oh, I will just dissolve. The same as we feel like, for example, person lying on the beach in the warm sand. They dissolve. They're restful. They're relaxed. But tantric relaxation goes a little bit beyond that. At some point, after you have rested, after you have given your body time to regulate, you start learning the relaxation and activation. How can you remain relaxed? Or how can you return to your restful self? How can you manage excitement, activity? How can you use aggression to live a balanced life that is joy forward? Joy forward, pleasureful life. Efficient creatively, awakened creatively, fluid. So this is the goal. And so for your question, you gave me clarification. I've always viewed it as just our energy, similar to chakras. Not sure if it's the same. So energy is a scalar entity, as we say in physics. So it's a scalar unit. And energy is nothing unless you, in the material world, in the world of our perception, energy is nothing unless it goes somewhere. We cannot perceive a stagnant energy. Light is the energy pulse. Sound is the energy moving. Everything that we perceive is the energy moving. So how do we work with energy movement? This is what Tantra, yes, can teach you. How can we move energy properly? Where is energy not moving? Where do I have those blockages inside of me? Where do I say no to this desire of mine, this impulse? Where do I store aggression instead of diffusing it, giving it back to solve the problem, and then relocating it to something, removing all of those energy blockages? We can just transmit it, we can use it, we can turn it into material goods. We can experience pleasure through this energy. So this is what Tantra does, and it does it. Tantra is unity. Unity between your body, between your intellectual side and your automations, your unconscious. So this trinity united is what enables this energy to flow efficiently. And it's achieved through various tricks and various techniques, various practices. And the funny thing, I'll give you an example of tantric practice. You won't believe that this is a tantric practice. One of the practices is that it encompasses literally that you learn the scripts for how to efficiently work in certain situations. It can also be a part of your tantric protocol. For example, as I demonstrated these energy blockages, right? For example, you encounter at work or some bureaucratic organization, you encounter unpleasant communication. Someone told you something. You start feeling rage rising in you. You feel like outrage. You have a lot of aggression coming up. In nature, it's totally productive. You can attack the entity that attacked you. That's how it feels to you. In the civil world, you cannot express all of this aggression reasonably. Just pour it onto the attacker. What to do? Where does this energy go? A lot of people live in this state in which they perceive or they encounter actual aggression, or they perceive certain influences from the outside as acts of aggression. And when they receive it, they start rising their aggression up. Where does it go? It becomes autoaggression. it gets buried in themselves. They have to somehow dissipate this heat. They cannot just deflect it. They cannot transform it. What we do in Tantra with that? First of all, you can, if you struggle, for example, with communication, you can literally write yourself scripts for typical situations, how you will hygienically, ecologically deflect the situation. So if you cannot, if you, for example, in these moments of rage, you start struggling a lot with healthy communication, you can create a dialogue and rehearse it. That's one tier of it. The second thing that you do when you established, when you trained for effective communication in uncomfortable situations to lower the heat that you have, we have a trick of moving this energy. You deflect it. You don't just waste it. What is energy? What is aggression? What is mental energy? It's some electric impulse that your brain received energy for. So your body, biochemically, gives energy-bearing molecules to spark in the brain the response. The brain sparks, there's response sparked in the brain somewhere. And your brain immediately picks on certain scenario to help you, to save you. But you don't have to be saved right now. Effectively, you just communicated the issue. That's as much as you can do in the civilized world. What do you do with the rest of energy? You learn the skill of deflection. And this is achieved through, first of all, very well formulating what is it that you want right now, for example. What is your priority in life right now? You can shift your focus there. And the second skill you learn, besides being aware of your desires, you learned how to move your focus. And this is also achieved through exercises. Quickly. Everything can become a trigger. Every stressful event, like it happened in my life right now, every stressful event, I call it growing peaches on crab. I grab it and I grow my peaches. Every unpleasant communication, I go and I turn this rage into action. This would be the best if you can act upon certain goal of yours right in the moment or shortly after. Or it can go to just focusing on the productive thoughts for several seconds, several minutes afterwards. F all of this new age spiritual S.T. F modernity. Humans are simple. Go to mountains, live happily in a village, do manual labor, be one with nature and God, and you'll feel fulfilled. I hope that Kid Stardust, no hit by the way, good luck. Are you in the mountains right now? Like, are you in the mountains in the village right now? Let us know. Which village are you in? Which country are you in? We'll go join you. Manual labor, by the way, is a wonderful thing. I love it so much. I love manual labor. I actually, one of the things that I do when I have some, for example, something negative sparks me, I transmute it into manual labor. It works wonders. She's right in the sense of our fight for fight or flight being activated, and we need an outlet. Yeah, because the outlet in the civilized world is not an option. You know, the outlet as nature intended is not an option. Good luck to you too, by the way, Kid Stardust. I mean, I wouldn't be so radical about it, because you want to have new age spiritual. It's not new age. It's pretty old school, I would say. Modernity. What's modernity? Humans are simple. Go to mountains. Humans are simple. I mean, it's very easy to degrade the human to an animalistic life. It's very easy to do that. But when you experience ecstasy looking at the art pieces, I'm sorry, I wouldn't trade having that experience for not having this experience. Humans are so much more capable of just transmitting energy, transmitting life through very cool creative endeavors. I absolutely love it. I'm absolutely not to that feature that we have. And modern world is the world that allows you to not be in the ditch somewhere, to not do some like manual labor all the time to survive. Modern world allows you to actually find a niche in which you can exercise your like creative properties of your mind, develop your talents in more complex ways. So I wouldn't be so radical about it. I hope that you will find your way in more harmonious fashion, because your comment again, it's it's not in contradiction. Be one with nature and God, whatever you mean by God in your notion. Whatever you mean by that does not contradict your creatorship potential and resources that we have. Just as I started with archetypes, you can use everything. You can say that F modernity, F everything, and you can make it like this is good, living with nature is good, and modernity is bad. And you just create a concept that you didn't dig into. You create this hierarchy of good and bad. What if, like you're just right now tuning into this stream, you have your phone and you have the internet, we can communicate, exchange energy, you might be inspired for something. What if we just functionalize it? Modernity, whatever modernity comes with, take everything you like about modernity and use it. Take everything you like about nature and use it. You don't have to do, I mean, you are nature, everything we create is nature. Humans and nature, human mind and nature are indivisible. It's just one unit. So it's an illusion to juxtapose them. Modernity is as nature is nature in your sense, as like some pristine virgin forest. It's no different. Some of this calls to mind the training I did in Kundalini yoga about a million years ago. Greetings from Atlanta. Um, Very cool, thank you. Greetings to you too from New York. Kundalini yoga, yeah, I mean the though has intercepts. I think all those schools they kind of weave into each other. I did Kundalini meditation several years ago. And actually, it's interesting because Kundalini, I remember there was this whole hype about rising your Kundalini energy, which I perceive as the scale of sublimation. It's the scale of taking your sexual energy from the bottom and rising it up into this, again, also creatorship, into what like Freudian notion calls sublimation, and into creativity, into action, into acquisition of resources. So that's how I perceive the Kundalini practice. But then when I went to Tantra, to me, Kundalini was actually a tool to mask certain things that I had where sexual energy actually belongs naturally. And so with Tantra, I started working on grounding them back in, such that I have variability. Because if a novice goes through Kundalini, there is again this hazard, just as with developing an observer figure, there is this possible side effect, there is this danger that you lift it up, but you lose variability. You lift it up, and now you kind of get locked into the state. The art is to be able to switch, to use everything as function, to functionalize everything, to be fluid in how we can use different facets of our things. Because, yeah, if you, as I talked about, as you can develop an observer, you can forget how to experience things purely, will create suffering and tension. That's why we need to have an observer where it belongs, and being able to turn off the observer and turn on the experiencer. Same thing with Kundalini. As we rise it up to use it for creative pursuits, or even aggression, any like animalistic energy can rise it up for creative pursuits. Sometimes we need to ground it up and use it directly for what it is. So that's the sentiment. What got you into studying Tantra? I did the I don't know, it was naturopath. It's really difficult to answer these questions. It wasn't like some person told me that this is the way. No, it was not. I was always if I was to go into my life story, it would make sense because uh, I was kind of a rebellious person who rarely saw, who was just introduced to samples of life that I wanted and lifestyle and attitudes that I wanted. But on the baseline, my brain was getting trained on in daily life to adapt to the system that I didn't like. So it would be, let's say, my familial system. I didn't like what was happening there. I didn't like what was happening in school, in the mental state, in the mental plane. But then sometimes I would get glimpses of people who would be the guides. So there always were people who would show me the other way of living, and I was drawn to that. And so I kind of knew that it existed. It aligned with my inner truth because I was connected with my inner truth since early childhood. But at the same time, I was getting trained for something else. And I think if I was to formulate what happened was I understand how it should be, but all of my adaptations are for something that I don't like. So I had very strong personal conflict, but I was scared to take responsibility for this side, this stream of life, because I knew that this stream of life, this attitude, this behavior, these choices, they do kind of work. They give me survival. So I knew that this is my survival, but this is what I want. And because I was not exposed to it regular, I was not exercising, and what we exercise builds, what we exercise develops. I had to go and study this. I had to reinforce it. A very scary process because ditching this, not ditching, we're not ditching, we're also building the lateral, we build functions. But trying to at least release my attachment to this system that I didn't like but was more or less functional, and embracing something else was really scary. And it was path, it was my own personal pursuit. Like in my spare time was devoting 10 years probably into active work on undoing certain harmful things from this adaptation practice and adopting new ways. And tantra was the like polishing thing for me because it gave me tools from which I could experience everything through practices with activation of the senses primarily. That's the power of tantra because you're working with all of your senses. And you're working with relaxation for once. Psychotherapy doesn't do that. When you go through tantra, you finally reconnect with your authentic self, which is found in ultimate relaxation. So, that sounds right. Experienced some unusual side effects myself. Nothing too terrible, but a friend of mine had some very distressing symptoms. It's certainly not something to take lightly. If you want to share what it was, or at least give a hint if it's something very intimate, feel free to drop it. It's about Kundalini. What kind of symptoms? Yeah, some person asks too. But yeah, that was what like brought me to tantra after cumulatively probably 28 years of my aware life. It was just a growing conflict, and then in a but in different videos I will be saying different things, perhaps because there will be always some facet that today sounds better, sounds more reasonable. Hello cutie, hello cutie. I'm convinced you're cutie too. So that's why, yeah, there will be some discrepancies in my narrative, but this probably actually, thank you for asking, because I formulated for myself in the most laconic way, the most comprehensive and the most perceptible. But the results that I extracted from that, they were of immediate relevance, let's say. So when I started practicing tantra, when I started doing everything, for once, I developed such a flexibility. It feels like, instead of living on some instead of like being in the sea on some half crushed boat, you feel like you're now on a surfboard. This is the difference. So now you're not just like, wave. You are riding the waves of life. And that is achieved through developing this flexibility of mind and realization. The coolest realization of tantra that I will summarize through this analogy is that you can access any state right this second. You can access any state of mind. If you're not some vegan malnourished person who is just biochemically very strongly off because they don't have basic nutritional resources. If you're physically more or less okay, you are going to be able to access any state right now. And with tantra, you actually witness how it's done. You try it once and you realize that, first of all, life is happening only right now, right here, right now, in the body. The body exists only in the now. What does it mean? Your body is what produces hormones that we read as experiences. So all of the chemical reactions are happening in the now. So Everything we feel, every emotion there is happening in the now. What are our thoughts in this notion? Because our thoughts can journey in the past, they journey in the future. They are just the vehicle that deliver that or the shell, the comprehensible, right? Comprehensible shell, some costume for our emotions and feelings that we want to conceptualize, that we want to understand somehow. And here's your thought. It comes as a shell of the feelings, of the biochemical reaction. There is some reaction happening, flooding your body that exists only here and now. It can be thought about the future, it can be thought about the past. It doesn't matter what exists as your body in this chemistry right now, and your feelings. And because of that, you can access any state right now. You can experience paradise right now. You can experience absolute nightmare right now, even in the best and the most comfortable situation, or in a more challenging situation. Because you're literally the machine that produces what we read as experience is only here and now. So about the Kundalini symptoms or the response, I can say that my symptoms pertain largely to discrepancies in state of consciousness. Dreaming became quite intense, lucid dreaming and so on, other things too. My friend, though, started to have some serious personality changes, not positive ones, bordering on the development of a mood disorder. That's an interesting one. The practices, it would be interesting to know what practices you were doing and what were the objectives of those practices. Because in me, it instantly triggers my internal engineer to start thinking about it. I really would want to. I start like doing this. My problem solving starts working immediately. Because Kundalini meditations. I mean, there are Kundalini meditations on YouTube. Again, they're just raising your energy. They charge you up. But they also, the meditation that I was doing was using Kapalabhati, the fire breathing that can put person in somewhat altered state of mind when they first do it, but it's an activating breath. So there's this element of I don't remember how it changes the gases ratio when you're breathing, what it does on the chemical level, but it's a very rapid, forceful, pumping breath that I was doing. But then there's also there's Kundalini yoga that works around the belly area, lower belly, pelvic floor. Bring awareness there, bringing blood flow there. It's interesting. Like a lot of those interventions multiplied by existence of trauma, multiplied by very strong stress, they can do certain things. But then also another thing with changes in the mood, with changes in personality, it can be a consequence of too rapid, too forceful intervention, because sometimes we may be scared of the desired state of our being. It can be a too rapid exposure to certain things without us being prepared. For example, our nervous system, our psyche wasn't able to recover. Our nervous system wasn't able to ground itself. But then we do certain practices. Like for example, there are coaching programs. I'm familiar in Russia. They were very popular at some point. There were coaching programs that were, I think, shaped after the River of Life, some sect from the U.S. or some coaching program from the U.S. And those programs, they would put people. Some people would go into psychosis from them because they pump energy very high. So super pumping thing. This collective work, this group consciousness, group identity with all the energies in resonance. And then people were instructed to not sleep properly, so they go into this exhausted state, but with very high energy influx. and also like exhausting people's resources for energy. And then they were instructed to do something that contradicted their internal controls. For example, like some example, like run naked on the street or something like that. Something very like some disruptive, some uncomfortable activity that human psyche is not comfortable with in that state. And some people would go into psychosis afterwards. It was such a strong intervention in their mind, both energetically, both emotionally, plus exhaustion, with absolutely no regard for how the person feels. It was literally like work to pull from human like reserves at that point. And plus completely crushing personality, because our personality consists of our ego and superego. We have impulsive part, that's what we started with, right? Experiential part and then observer part. So when you crush that connection very roughly, forcefully, like in this abusive fashion, that can change a lot. So that's wild. It almost sounds like some of these people were doing cult type stuff. Yeah. Oh, thank you. I just passed. Oh my god. Thank you for your contribution. The comment is funny. The person is sharing that they just passed gas, so their energy level is very high. Thank you so much. So, yeah, the cult stuff. Yeah, that's there are many things actually with tantra. It's difficult for me, especially in the Russian speaking sphere. It's really difficult to talk about tantra because tantra itself has gained popularity with very perverted notion, because there were a lot of cults, there were a lot of people who would take advantage of it being exotic enough, such that people just go for something to awaken some energies, not knowing what it was. And then there were people who would go to India, even. They go to India, they meet with some guru, and that guru just like confiscates their documents, confiscates their phones, confiscates any ability to interface with the external world, and they're forced basically to perform things, non-consensual things of wild kind, for however many days. And so a lot of things, a lot of the concepts, a lot of the teachings, they become perverted, and they end up being dangerous cults that can have irreparable damage on human psyche. You want to laugh? Laughter is medicine. It is. How often do you meet couples with mismatched energy? Mismatched energy, what do you mean by that? Because mismatched energy, I usually regard couples, I cannot split them into two separate people. When we regard them as a couple, it's always worth recognizing them as a system. That said, when there is individuation happening, it's oftentimes when we see them as separate people, we can notice them being like yin and yang, where you see that this partner has this prevailing energy on the outside, but this energy they're unaware of, and then the other partner will have very strong dominating energy that person is unaware of, and components that they're unaware of that are found very prevalently in that partner. So it's usually this puzzle, this interesting interplay between two people, where they just have they just glue to each other based on their hidden things, and they will be irritated by that hidden thing in their partner. That's where this like interesting mirror happens. Mismatched energy. Give me an example, probably better, such that I continue this discussion more fruitfully. Give me an example, like what does this partner have, and what this partner has? What comes to your mind? Because in my previous stream, by the way, In the previous stream, I was discussing the topic of narcissism and how narcissists of different kinds glue to each other, the nature of attraction there. And I myself, I had narcissistic trauma. I have very strong narcissistic component myself. And that's why I talk about it so passionately and kind of from within the experience as well as from observing people and studying narcissism and narcissistic inheritance, how it gets passed down in the families. And narcissism usually comes with grandiose narcissist with suppressed narcissist. They will be drawn to each other because there will be seemingly very strong flow of love and feeling needed to one person, and then this other person will try to prey on the energy of the claimed narcissist. So this claimed narcissist will be closing out, causing pain to this unclaimed narcissist, and unclaimed narcissist will be puzzled, perplexed, because they're unable to claim their own narcissistic part. So they have it, they see it, but they want it from the outside, as opposed to getting it themselves. And this person also sees something in the other person. They think that they need to get it from the outside, but they have it in themselves. So this is a bright example of this mismatch, seeming mismatch. It's not a real mismatch. It's just dysfunction here and dysfunction here that are complementary. People meet each other and they sync. The troubles commence. Because sometimes they're unwilling to see that, oh, I can give myself this, I can give myself this. I see myself fully now. I see my partner fully now. We can just love each other instead of preying on each other. Like, I call it like for the brightness of the analogy, getting their guts tied together. Like this is the relationship, and then it's like, you said this, you thought this, you said this, you did this. And starts being this erosion. This like erosion of each other's soul because of the guts are tight. There's no freedom, there's no breath relationship. The work here is to untie the guts and start giving yourself whatever you need from your partner. And then see how the space of love grows. So, hi, James. That's right, Miss Shuriken and I have been together for a long time. And we tend to match each other's energy when we are in public and complement each other's energy when we're alone. Okay, good. Then, I like your wording, not mismatched energies, but more of the hidden energy, or I should say less visible side. And love to Shuriken's comment. I'm sorry if I'm mispronouncing your last name. I'm trying to read fast. Sometimes I might skip letters or something. So there is a beautiful exchange between our viewers and comments on the energy. But mismatched energy will not sit together for a while. From my personal experience, I felt always, because of my unclaimed part, where I was kind of low-key victimizing myself, kind of like, this exercising this weaponized almost victimhood. I had this toxicity in personal relationships. And I realized when I started doing practices, there are practices that allow you to literally, you journey through your metaphysical space, through a psychophysical space. You journey through it, and then you can transform your experience into anything. As I said, you can access any state you want right now. And in those practices, you can focus, for example, on something that bothers you super strongly in this psychophysical or metaphysical journeying space. And then, since it is just a space of your psyche, it's perceptional, you can transform yourself, you can transmute into anything you want. There are no physical boundaries. And through that, I found out that all of the heaviness that I always felt in the close relationships, that's something tangled with me and just like pulls me down somewhere, gives me this weight. I always felt that. I realized that it was me who was always embarking on this role. I was the first in line to run, to like just get the clinch on someone and weigh everything down. So this is how it felt, and I realized how to get out of that state. What is that state? And interestingly, it actually had physical manifestations. It channeled, I felt it through my right side of the body awakening. Because I always had this torque here, and I always was kind of, even physically, this energy, this stored energy that I needed to have light, boundless experience in life, and without this feeling of that I'm like adhering to someone, and it feels like a heavy rock. Instead of that, became a light experience. It manifested in my right side, being reconnected with my right side of the body. I always had a torque towards the left. I always had more active facial expressions on my left. My left side was much more embodied, but my right side became a vessel for this energy that I didn't know I had, that is found like this in this one meditation, in which I wanted to find a method to not feel heavy in relationship. Hi, Ben. Your outfit looks so nice on you. I watched some of your videos and got, oh my god, got the drip on every video. Thank you for your compliment. I made it. I make my clothes since 2022, so I tailor everything to my body, and that's my degree of freedom. I can make it fit as much as I want. No, you're saying it's just fine. No worries. It's not my name though, just part of my username. It pertains to the martial arts I practice. Not familiar. Thank you for educating me. Ben asks, so you don't like relationships? What do you mean I don't like relationships? I don't like dysfunctional relationships. I don't like relationships that give that are, for example, I don't like when relationships are left without attention to actual obvious problems. I watched so many couples in my life. In childhood, I never understood why it was so, when they did not even want to figure out why the problems exist and why they persist. So people would live 50 years together, holding on to the problem, doing this, or living the same patterns over and over and over and over that drain them, that steal their mere ability to get anywhere in life, or that make them exhausted physically. So the difference between functional relationships and dysfunctional relationships is not the conflict. The difference between functional relationships and dysfunctional relationships is that in functional relationships, people actually sit down, and after conflict, they rewrite the law. They learn something. They understand something about their relationship, and they make conclusions. Dysfunctional relationship is when you're an idiot, you're a bitch, and they're upset at each other. They created landfill in their relationship, and they leave it as garbage in, and they don't go anywhere from that. Especially when those people love to reproduce, so they love reproduction beyond measure, because I guess that's the easiest way for them to, I don't know, to experience their internal powers. Those people love to reproduce, and so their children, for 18, 21 years, they experience this as well. You're an idiot, you're a bitch, blah. And or creation of these, or in everything that leads to those breakdowns. And then children often used as a shield, like moms love to, it's a kid, don't do this with a kid. Or you don't care about kids, and then men are like doing something too. And so all of this circus is my least favorite thing. These relationships I absolutely abject, if you were to ask me. This is if it's done with awareness, if done by adult people, if they don't want to fix anything, when just want to live with that. If they have kids, I object this to no end. Hello, gorgeous. Hello, Melvin. If the communication is bad, or there is unwillingness to engage it and give and take, dysfunction. Yes. You're so pretty. I'm sure you always hear that, but I must tell you. Thank you, James. Both sides need to be equal in love. It's always one-sided. That's the problem. Yes, I agree with that. One-sided, but also it might feel like it's one-sided sometimes. As I gave an example of narcissists, the unclaimed narcissist will see that big narcissist has an energy. They they get this energy, they get inspiration, but they don't feel, let's say, acceptance. They don't feel what they would perceive as empathy towards them. And they will be miserable because they will feel like, I give you everything. I wasted best years of my life to be with you. Not realizing that they were getting a bunch of energy, a bunch of resource from that other person. So it may seem one-sided, but then why are you staying in a one-sided relationship? If relationship is ongoing, it's always two-sided. The other person is getting something from it. Even if they cannot sit and talk, this frustration is the resource that they're getting. And they, because of their trauma, they are trained to use frustration as the source. This is the only way they can access this energy. So they go and they need a conflict. They need frustration. They need to be devoid of some attention. They need to not feel the flow of life because they don't know how to use the flow of love, flow of life. They know how to use them productively. They know how to use frustration because their parents, parental system, their family system taught them such. Ben who asked about whether I don't like relationships, it's the same. You look incredible. Thank you so much. Blue, definitely your color. Thank you. If you are in the USA, what do you think brought us to the political divide between men and women? I don't care about masses. I don't know. A political divide it's highly artificial. I don't care about this, and I cannot force myself to care about because it's too artificial for me to care about. I know what you're talking about. I know the phenomenon. I sometimes come across channels that discuss that there are men who love conservatism, women who love progressivism, whatever it comes with, and I just can't feel bothered to think about it because I don't know. If people are deep into that thing, it's the symptom that they're not deep into their own life. And understand that sometimes, yes, you stumble upon the systemic blockages, but oftentimes it happens not because the person actually felt something in the environment that was imposed on them, that limited them very strongly. And through that, they start rebellion. Oftentimes, it's because they heard about it and they assume that it exists and they go and act upon that instead of actually paying attention to their life, living embodied from within. Plus, also another thing, political divide. It's people are biorobots. You are right now operating on automations. I operate on automations. I spoke those automations into myself. The environment gave me some automations. If people are constantly plugged into certain narrative, plugged into certain ideas, they're going to develop automations. I cannot discern whether people are manipulated into that artificially, if it's crafted, or if people literally all of them, in the masses, they face those problems, or if they came to life with these ideas. And something tells me that if people are plugged into certain outlets, this is likely it's fabricated. So I cannot be bothered thinking about it. Everybody can make a choice. If they want to, they can make a different choice. And they can regard systems in a more wholesome way. Because what you describe also, the political divide between men and women. Which men, which women? I'm a scientist. if you don't know, I'm a scientist. So to me, describing and operating, drawing conclusions on the systems that are poorly described is impossible. We need to know which women, which country, which area, which divide, what percentage, in which circumstances, and what is the function of all of that as well. What is the function of what we're observing? We need to know in general whether we even need to perform this study. If a man and a woman come to me, to my session, and they're like, help, we have a political divide that, for example, erodes our relationship. We want to be together because we built a family, we have a whole experience together, we trust each other, we love each other, but there is a political divide. And that influenced our intimacy, it influenced our quality of relationships. And they come to me and they want a solution for that. I'm going to be working on that. I'm going to be digging into the reasons why it happened in their life, why they wanted that to happen. In general, I'm not a supercomputer. I cannot compute all that. You're really well versed, sister. Insightful. I'm glad I scrolled here. Thank you. The energy mismatch from this divide leads to so much disconnect and dating. As a conservative man, I find myself trying to avoid political talk, lest I be put into a box. I think that's also somewhat a problem of identity, because what do you hold on to? This is also something that bugs me. I made a short video about it, about the identity. I identify as a conservative man. What does this give me? What is the function of my identity? And why the fact that I'm a conservative man should play a role in my relationship, in my love relationship? So these questions might be deconstructed into some deeper understanding of your intentions in general. Because when you put some costume on yourself, some attributes on yourself, you're going to be looking at the costumes in other people as well. But why so? Why do you need this shield of identity between you and your presumed partner or potential partner? Why do you bring to the world the idea that you're conservative? Why do you need to be conservative? Is being conservative like essential for your happiness? Or is it something else that will bring you better, more fulfillment, more happiness? I would think about that, because this will liberate you, and freedom will translate into this fluid connection with people, and you will find someone who is authentically connected with you. Authentically, without the shields. Because every political discourse, those political things, they can be discussed. If you are an analytical person yourself, you will identify that, okay, in conservatism, there are these things that I agree with, there are things that I disagree with. It becomes, again, not the hierarchy of something ultimately good and something that, for example, I focus only on good things in conservatism, but bad things I will close my eyes. I will not be noticing them, just because. But because I want this identity to be mine, I want to identify with good parts of conservatism, I will not be noticing these things. Instead of that, flatten it out, make it just a more sophisticated, perhaps, view of the world. Because the world is complex, the world is sophisticated. And then see what of that whole conservative thing is truly essential for you. Perhaps even remove affiliation with conservatism. And then, from what matters to you, from this assortment of what defines conservatism, from these key things, from this freedom also, from freedom of attitude, you will be attracting people who will be on board with you, who will be passed beyond the political things. Because today conservatism looks like this. Tomorrow it will take on different shape. Are you always agreeing with everything that's being said there? Conservatism itself is not a well-defined system. So it all comes from your internal needs, internal values. And that when you're embodied, when you're fully authentic, this is when you ditch the affiliations. You just become a pure human experience, in a sense. And pure human experience is where you meet your partner. Pure human experience is where there is point of connection that's beyond all those artificial concepts. I'm sorry that this is off topic, but do you mind if I ask how long you've lived here? Your English is better than the average native speaker, honestly. Thank you. I moved to the US in 2016. It will be 10 years this year in summer. Makes sense. Somebody says he's programmed. Then the person who asked about the conservatism, I'm not sure if I put a costume on. If I can myself conservative, it's more compliance with the labels society would place on me based on my thoughts and desires. I see. So I would say that this I think it all boils down to being honest with yourself, because I understand that if there's a label, I mean, is it true that you won't be able? Why? Another question that I have. Listen to this one. Why are you bothered about the division between some mythical men and mythical women when you, for example, want to find a partner? You are who you are. You are the person. You're the man. Biologically, you are a man. So you are man in nature, in the natural world. Everything we have around us is natural. You're born, hence you have a domain in life. You have resources, you're provided your path. What you are as you are. Why do you care about the issue about some men and some women, some groups, some affiliations there and then? Why? When you right now, your experience right now. Do you truly want a relationship? Or if you want a relationship, why is your focus not there? Why is your focus not on love with someone? Like, why is that? Why do you need those concepts to begin with? This would be my next question, yeah. I just had a sip of tea. I'm waiting for your response because this is something where juice may be found. Good question. Distraction is a part of our experience now. People lose focus. Yes. But then we choose to be distracted by one thing or the other. Somebody will be watching Discovery Channel because they love animals a lot, right? But some people will be trying to seek some other distraction. And especially the more, what to your comment, I made this video about self-governance on my channel. That, and also about the oversimplification. The thing is that people are fed the ideas, the concepts that are too simplistic. They create a framework that is kind of easy to understand, and that's impossible to understand if you start breaking it down into exact variables. But then people make those concepts, those umbrella things, their identity. That has nothing to do with them. It seems like we're all put on various costumes in various contexts, but some costumes are a lot more elaborate than others, maybe, and they're put on with intentions. Intentions, I think you want to say. Yeah, costumes we started with archetypes. Yes, archetypes in essence are costumes, but those costumes are inherent to our psyche. You know, when you start thinking from within, when you start seeking the most authentic desires, when you're very demanding for that authenticity and you start thinking about your idea of yourself, and when you start reclaiming things that you might be not so in line with right now, but that cause you to have very strong emotions, those things are native to you. That's the difference. But when we think about some extraneous things, they have nothing to do with you. And they become just an impediment. And yes, if you are okay holding on to some external identity, it might be useful, right? If you want to work, for example, for Daily Wire, you probably are better off being a conservative. And you can identify as such and put this artificial costume for some social benefits. But when it comes to your personal life, then the costumes that we wear, they should undergo some hygiene. In my opinion, we should be selecting something that sits very snug with us, very comfortably. I think that costumes are essential to functioning within society. Yes, they might be. They're imposed by society and they reflect the health and direction of a given society through its individual members. What is society? Yes, given society. I'm glad that you said the word given, because a lot of times people will be like, society. What is society? Do I identify with just every group of people out there? In general, society, yeah, you have social benefits. Another big theme of mine is where um, we need to be very, very, very transparent on our end about how we interact with the bigger systems. Because a lot of times people live in assumed contracts with the society, so-called mythical society. They can't characterize it. They just use this society as some like big authority. It doesn't matter how it's called. It's just some big authority that people entitle some rights over their freedoms. And they live as if this bigger authority demands something from them. And they don't voice it out. They don't like go and revisit. Is this contract even valid? Why and what am I receiving through this contract? It's like having subscriptions that you don't remember about. You just get billed once a year, and then you're like, oh my god, I need to cancel this. I was paying like I paid $100 this year for something I don't use. That's exactly what happens with society. You just experience as much pragmatism interfacing with so-called society or with any other system, with your employer, with financial system, with government, as much pragmatism as they exercise towards you. Because people in the government, for example, like any system, they regard you no more than a number. You're a number. That's it. Taxpayer, a number. Conservative, liberal. Well, not I don't know. Liberalism nowadays, it's more conservatives than versus left. It's not conservatives versus liberalism. I think conservatives nowadays are more liberal than the left. But they regard you as those like strange labels that they don't represent you. For them, you're a number. But people somehow they feel their entire life of an individual is somehow emotionally crafted by those systems. Why? How? There's huge disparity between these two attitudes. This is the inequality that we discussed before. This inequality is in action, in relationship. This is where it's found. Because something anonymous treats you as a number, and you treat it with all of your personal involvement. You devote your entirety to that system. You give it all to it. Makes no sense. That's something that needs to be revisited. What benefits you're actually getting from that system? If you're receiving like if you make like $1 million a year to be on TV, talk about how you're a conservative and talk on behalf of some conservatism, some abstract conservatism, makes sense. But if all it does is cause you daily frustration, for example, to be affiliated with that, or it limits you in life, why? Love your voice. Thanks a lot, Nicholas. Certainly, people put on airs, I think more often than not, and more so these latter years, something seems to make people fear showing their authentic self. Yeah, and everybody, it's also a habit of being on social media, I guess. And I don't know, I think it's just an artifact that we see more people in our life than we used to because of social media. We just get more exposure to them. Then why do you say that? This is just how it seems to me based on what I see every day. Yeah, something seems off. I don't know if it's just an awakening from the naivety of youth or if things are really changing. I don't know if things are really changing. You know, people were like, the people of Christian inclinations, they were all about apocalypse, like second coming in the previous years. And then I'm like, dude, no, open the history. Open any history book. 100 years ago, there was the same garbage going on. People thought that it was second coming. Some guy in Kenya recently uh, announced that there will be second coming because there was some season of rains. As a result, just bought himself several, like, couple of Mercedes Benz cars and calling based on the donations from people who wanted to build a boat. It just goes on and on and on. I don't think that anything changes globally. The world, I think, it's a better place than it was a couple of 100 years ago. I think it is better. Genuinely, I think it's better, especially in the developed countries. Everything just transforms in some way, and I think what we perceive as bad, first of all, it's only a segment of reality, and second thing is oftentimes what we perceive as such can be tuned out a little bit. But then, what changes, I guess, is the speed of information delivery to people, and also the speed of implementation of new policies, implementation of new things that are untested. Because we live in the developed capitalism right now, and the goal of capitalism, obviously, everything in human history in general is driven by how we acquire resources. So acquisition of resources is what determines people's lives. Right now, we live in the era where the acquisition of resources takes on certain shape and certain speed. And that's why, yes, it would put some novel psychological burden on people to adapt to that. And yes, it reshapes people's relationships. It reshapes how people reproductive strategies, immigration strategies. It does change, but it's always in some baseline. Life is always a pulse. Life has always certain trends. So I wouldn't be. Again, ask yourself, why do you focus on certain things that are catastrophic? Why is this desire coming? As I mentioned, you have certain feelings like here and now. You have certain feelings, emotions, certain hormones are pumping and creating your state. Thoughts, ideas, information are what encapsulates those feelings and thoughts. They're just shapes. So, and since we can choose to be in any state we can choose whatever ideas we put in ourselves. Is it really essential to focus on that? But life in any way would require adaptations. If you go live and play in nature, you will be facing adaptations because the weather will be changing. One day there will be some spontaneous, I don't know, there will be like 3 weeks of extreme frost or 1 month of extreme rain. What are you gonna do? You're going to adapt. Will it be worse? Just spontaneous nature of nature, I guess. Hey, you're so beautiful. Your eyes are like the ocean. Thank you so much, Miguel. As a conservative myself, there is not one conservative person in office. It's all wasteful spending, Nicholas said. Increased exposure could be the answer, in more ways than one even. I think it's the exposure that makes people afraid, at least in many cases. Yeah, and anxiety is like, all businesses are built on anxiety pretty much, most of them. So if you feel anxiety that you cannot control, you are likely to be contributing to the businesses that somehow help you cope with it. If you feel anxiety that you can control, then you're going to buy the product directly. But anxiety is a monetizable thing. The more anxiety you allow yourself to experience, the more anxiety that you cannot yourself, with your actions, control, opting for businesses, opting for something that just soothes you, the better it is for the system. That's why there's direct interest to promote that. In what regards is society better than 100 years ago? Lost my lol, my last comment got deleted. I'm a flirt. What can I say? Forgive my ADHD. Are you still vegan? If not, do you still have restrictions on the animal products you use? I'm considering vegetarian diet. I don't have OnlyFans. In what regards is society better than 100 years ago? I mean, for me, it's much better. For you, I don't know. For you, you feel like it was better 100 years ago. Totally valid. For me, it's better because it's cleaner. There is more opportunity to travel. There is more. Again, people don't have to spend so much time acquiring basic survival resources, so they're more capable of performing artistic things. And for me, it's really important. I mean, it's 100 years ago in Soviet Union, I would be able to go to school and do things that I enjoy. 100 years ago in some other country, it would be quite restrictive for me as a woman. There's also so much knowledge in the realm of female sensuality and stuff. But patriarchy was really a patriarchal world, patriarchal religion dominated world. Also, religions that had no duality of masculine and feminine. Those religions, they really affected, influenced female self-awareness. So to me, it's unambiguously better, and I'm really happy with where I am right now. Even though, yeah, there were challenges, there were things where I needed to go virtually against the system, but I don't regard it as something um, determining of my experiences. I regard it as a natural thing that just happens. No matter what system you live, there is always a conflict between system and the individual. So whatever difficulties I faced, they're natural. And 100 years ago, there also would be some limitations. And I don't know if it would be possible to exercise certain freedoms without severe repercussions. It also happened that the world evolved from aggressive, very annihilation methods, let's say, to manipulation methods. And when there is a system of annihilation, persecution methods, this is where um, people don't have an opportunity to act. When there's manipulation system, which capitalism enables, this manipulation system of governance. In manipulation system, you can work with your intelligence, and you can actually do things. You can learn about the system, and you can take advantage of it. In the systems where you're either right and with the system, or you're wrong and you're against the system, and it has very serious consequences, it's just impossible. So that's the big difference. About veganism, no. I have whole body of work on my channel that's devoted to veganism. I conducted whole research. I put videos with a bunch of our literature review for why veganism is super horrible and damaging for the body. And also, I conducted the whole study. I gathered 25 ex-vegans and I conducted a study on them. It was a survey with 4,500 entries that I took, and I have a bunch of videos on that. So go on my channel. And veganism is not something that I will ever endorse because it's a really, really damaging lifestyle. And also another thing is identity. Part of it is identity. It's a huge thing too. Anxiety and fear mongering. Yes, it's possible that we evolved technologically much faster than we evolved internally, and we're having to deal with a discrepancy. Discrepancy is a good word here, but I would like you to pay attention to the fact that I think all of this development, it's reinforced the the perceived difference between the higher classes and lower classes, be it or even like capabilities of people, because um, one person, for example, you give some social media vehicle to someone. One person will get immediately addicted to it and will start losing their life to it. One person will learn how to monetize off it. So for one person who will be blessing the best vehicle, they will keep developing. And for the person who doesn't have a habit of development but has a habit of instant gratification in life, it will become a very damaging thing. So any technological advancement, I think, it just increases the split biological inequality between people, biological and mental inequality. That's what happens, in my opinion. And there are people who are more adaptable, who are quick learners, who prioritize their development. There are people who settle, give up, give in, just go with the flow type of thing. Now, what's the standard for our adaptation? Some person is asking about crack. No. Do you? Low-key, one of my internal motivations for getting married is the domination of, or the position of power that a man would have over a wife and child. I haven't been able to find the root of this desire. I would like to exist in a more harmonious state, but I'm not sure how to get there. Dominance, what is dominance? What do you perceive as dominance? Do you feel like you want to exercise your will upon someone? If it is so, then it is called leadership in a sense. And then there are ways you can ecologically express that elsewhere. It doesn't have to be your relationship. Because in a relationship, if you build this dominance thing, it can be a part, not even the foundation of the sexual interaction. But dominance will always be when it is misplaced in life. It might start be draining for you because dominance comes with responsibility. And where can you exercise your dominance? Where can you exercise your pushy nature such that it gives you more reward? Because this eventually dominance in the relationships will make you exhausted and your partner exhausted, because your partner will also have her own ego. It's a human. The child will be at 3 years old, they have very strong ego awakening. The child will be experiencing ego, and then when you clash there, you will start either feeling you will stop respecting your woman, or your woman will start pushing back, and that will lead to a destruction of your relationship or severe problems there. There will be much more deeper things there. So think about where you can exercise your dominance in a way that it gives you unlimited resources. Because people think sometimes, yeah, big thing. You go to relationships and you try to, for example, easy example, woman comes to relationship and she's like, I want to find a rich man who will be having this super kick-ass company's business, and I will be living with him. He will be sponsoring me. Oftentimes, the situation is the following. I'm a woman. I really want to exercise dominance. I really want to be this kick-ass person. I really want to have a business, but I'm scared. So I will find a man who will have all that, and I will kind of appropriate it from him. This is what happens. And this is not ecological, it's not sustainable. This thing will always be, will create an unhealthy background. So if you have this dominance, think about the application. Shrooms help the healing process. I don't know what you're talking about. Do a pig nose, one finger nose up. Mm-mm. Looks like some of the messages get censored. Can you still see them? I don't know. I'm reading what I can. I'm not rich, but I have a good job and a lot of love to give you. The qualities that aid a person in adapting to the modern world are possibly at odds with the qualities that help foster an authentic person and an empathetic one. Thank you so much for your support, Luis. So the qualities that aid the person adapting to the modern world are possibly at odds with the qualities that help foster an authentic person and an empathetic one. Empathy too. A lot of people confuse empathy with empathy. You see, that's such a twisted thing. Everything can be so twisted. Empathy is presented as an ultimate virtue sometimes. But a lot of times empathy is a response to traumatic upbringing. For example, I'm like listening to what the walls are whispering. I am hearing, because I know that my parent is incredibly explosive, I start seeing the most subtle signs of their feelings changing, of their mood changing. I become this hypersensory person with empathy. But at the same time, because I haven't got any love as a child, I start grabbing onto others for love, but I use my empathy. It becomes weaponized empathy. Or, as I mentioned in my self-governance video, political systems will be, like left for example, will be exploiting female tendency to have empathy in order to drain their energy and like make them forget about themselves in order to suck energy towards something abstract. Save the world. Which world? What's the world? Which world am I supposed to be saving right now? Why cannot I save the world through my own creative pursuits right now? Why should I be just thinking empathetically, draining my senses, my emotions, getting anxious, bogged down by saving the world through my empathy? So empathy can be quite weaponized as well. Should be used with discretion. I just grabbed this word because it's not an ultimate virtue in my opinion. Empathy. Empathy actually is something that sometimes should be used with the observer that we started. That's in the title of this conversation. So the qualities that a person adapting to the modern world, qualities that help foster an authentic person. Adapting to the modern world, we can regard it also through the instant gratification thing. As we develop, teenagers, imagine teenagers, right? Teenager is the person who first left the family system. And they're like, okay, I know how to live in the system. I still want to feel safe and seen. I go into the society and now expect the society to treat me kind of like a family system. And they start adapting to it. They start doing this mimicry. Is it authentic? It's a part of path towards authenticity. It can be a part towards authenticity. And when we're adapting to the modern world, how are we adapting? The ultimate adaptation to the modern world is to actually become authentic and then become very clear with how I can interact with the world. Have a domain for your pure, authentic self. When all of your senses are safe, you create this domain. You go into the world, you very clearly interface, interact with the system on the basis of contribution, on the basis of exchange, not on the basis of just being a donor to the system. No. You're like, okay, I go to work from 9 to 5. I am performing my duties. I'm receiving this amount of money. Thanks, bye. This is what I mean by that. Or I'm going to see, I don't know, I'm going to some bureaucratic agency. My goal is to receive a signature on my document. I'm going to this agency. I'm receiving the signature. I'm leaving. The story ends there. I'm not draining my energy through that. So, this clarity with things that require this awareness. But authenticity is you see, it's the opposite of instant gratification that teenagers seek when they first enter the world, and they want to feel safe and influential in the world. They want to test their boundaries. They want to test themselves in the society. This instant gratification attitude, when they start putting like fashionable makeup on, when they start dressing in a certain way, when you know how I was a super passionate appreciator of 50 Cent because the coolest boy in the class loved 50 Cent. I could not make myself fully enamored with 50 Cent outside of several songs that would make me dance. But overall, I did like 50 Cent. But the coolest boy listened to 50 Cent, so it was on my MP3 player. And that's not quite authentic, I guess. Instant gratification, however, because I feel good about it. The coolest boy does it. Maybe he will notice me if I listen to 50 Cent. But deeper adaptation to the world is actually through authenticity, because this is where the core, the foundation is found. If you constantly seek validation, 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 you're not going to receive validation. It's a hurt narcissistic side. Hurt narcissistic side will never be validated from anything external. It can only be satisfied from internal. Finding that resource is done through thorough work. But authenticity is a great asset. Who should be the most dominant in the relationship? I think it's an interplay. In general, it can be a part, again, it can be a part of sexual game as you agree with your partner. But mentally, having dominance, what are you for in the relationship? What are you building? Why do you need this dominance? Be clear about it. Why do you have this concept in general? Damn, eyebrows heavy AF, Illuminator said. My eyebrows, they're just dark, I think. I second the pig nose request. I did it, guys. So that's not empathy, that's only awareness. Dumb also, Illuminator. And then Illuminator, talk with bottom teeth. What else, Illuminator? Can you just give me the full list of things that you want to express here, such that we don't get distracted by that? I went through a traumatic experience a couple of years ago and lost God. I'm lost in my psyche and don't know how to proceed. What do you think of this? What is traumatic experience? What do you think what is lost in your psyche? What do you know how to proceed? And what do you mean by lost God? Because lost God, oftentimes I lost source. I lost connection with something. So some disconnection happened. Because God is how I feel concept of God. God is felt to me as the source. So it's when everything is off, I feel connected with something. And that's what I feel as God. What is that? And where is it found? It's often found in some either after the breaking point of the nervous system, when you're very, very exhausted and that's the only resort that you can go to. Or it's found when you are in the bliss, when you're fully embodied, fully relaxed, feeling good. But when there is chronic stress, when there's numbness, when there is rejection and neglect, self-neglect, emotional self-neglect, physical self-neglect, this is when you start losing God, because your mind is everywhere but inside. And you're not seeing the life from within. And seeing life from within, this is where you feel God. So this is what I think about in general terms. Hi. Roar. Did you shake your booty to 50 Cent? Not necessarily. Twerk wasn't popular back when I was a teenager. We had hip hop. And we also had Step Up movie, and we did a lot of choreography of that kind. Luis, this is one thing to consider. Has the usefulness of introspection expired for you? If you may need something else to focus on. Look out rather than in. That may also help you find the mate. Yeah, exactly. That's actually in line with, I think, what I was discussing. Luis responds, what do you suggest? I've thought about martial arts to bring me back a sense of autonomy. Any body practice actually would work for you. Starting with, I don't know, exercise where you actually focus even on the muscles. Breathing exercises will be a good way. Breathing exercise is something where you can first diagnose yourself, second, where you can actually start improving your state. Because state of heaven, how I describe it, like heaven, paradise in your own body, is when you can fully breathe without any blockages throughout to your pelvic floor. Your breath moves your pelvic floor. You're so open and light that you breathe with your entire body. And you can even envision it as you're breathing with every fingertip of yours. And in that moment, thoughts leave you, and you're left with total paradise existence. So breathing would probably be the easiest entry thing that you can try right now. Breathing with your belly and making it light. Breathe and try going deeper and deeper and deeper. Someone has to be the rock in the relationship. Can tantra be practiced by oneself? First, about the rock in the relationship. There are two people who are strong, embodied, independent, and powerful, and then they come together. the concept that you need a rock in the relationship, I would analyze that. Why do you need this strong polarity? Yes, in man and woman dynamic, there is this interplay of reception, of softness, and then something more assertive, something more uh, firm. But then, if you are not able to exercise the breadth of other experiences that you're capable of, then it's not going to be a productive life. And why we call it dominance, I don't know. How is this a dominance? It's not a dominance. It's just a union of two matching things. How is it a dominance? Dominance implies suppression of someone. This is what dominance is. Do you suppress someone when you come to you visit someone, they invited you, they open their door, they create the environment for you, you visit them, you bring them joy. This is not dominance. You come to their home that you're welcome to. You come to their garden, their beautiful environment that they created for you. You enter it and you mutually enjoy that act of giving, for example. Dominance in that sense would be that you are not invited. You're grabbing some, I don't know, some stick. You break their door, you enter that, and you say, "I'm now living here. Do whatever you want with that." This is dominance. So either we are different in our terminology, or we need to figure out why do you feel like for you to be happy and complete in relationships, you need to break someone's boundaries and force yourself upon something. So either or here. Can Tantra be practiced by oneself? Yes. There are even body practices that can be performed, that imply the partner, but can be designed to be performed by yourself. It's later, there are 4 big chapters in Tantra that come from your internal basic alignment to your internal work on the concept of partnership and love, to then start inviting partner into your practices, and then to sexual practices and the very end of it. And all of this training preceding to actually interfacing with your inviting partner to the practices, this whole array of things is practiced alone. And then when you start doing these interpersonal things, even those can be used, can be trained, can be practiced on your own. There are practices that are working on your body and your focusing skills. For example, there is a cool practice that's trained in throughout the whole course of Tantra, and that's the skill that you carry with you. All skills that you develop, you carry through your entire life. You can use them at any point. But this skill starts being worked on immediately. Focus and defocus. Defocusing is basically being able to enter fully diffuse state of mind. Focus is when you're concentrate on something. You can practice it right now. You imagine an object inside, some beautiful object that just comes to your mind. Envision it. And this object, you shrink it first. Gradually shrink it to the dot. Retain your focus on that dot. And now when the object is not a dot, when the object is a dot, it starts growing, starts slowly growing. And it grows bigger and bigger. And it grows so big that it reaches the size of the universe. In that moment, when it's the size of the universe, your mind gives up. It cannot comprehend it. It inflates so strongly that your brain, after this give up point, reaches the state of total restfulness. And in that defocused state, this defocused state can be translated not only to this practice, to rest your brain deeply. This defocused state can be practiced with your body as well. For example, you have a sensation. You can make a fist. You have a sensation here. You can focus on it. You can have partial focus on this sensation. Or you can defocus on this sensation. It's like floating just above it. just creating a cloud of this sensation. So those practices, they can be done with the partner, with very specific, later like translatable to sexual activities. And of course, and you can practice those things on your own as well. What are your qualifications or certifications? Or are you just talking out of your ass? My qualifications or certifications are the following. I'm a bachelor's in physics. I have PhD degree in engineering, and I have certification as a tantra coach. It's not quite far to ask me if martial arts are a good idea. I'll always say yes, but there may be other good ideas too. God is the personification of everything that's good and an image of what I need to move to from where I'm from. That image is gone, replaced by the devil, I say. By the devil, say. Again, it's we're talking about your mental space. If something got replaced in your mind, it's not physical. Like it exists in your mind. Hence, you can work with it. You're gorgeous. Thank you, Michael. A moral, utilitarian, and materialistic view of the world that leaves me desolate. Okay, I'll try my breathing techniques. I've been instructed in Vipassana meditation, so maybe I can start there. Simple breathing, even. There's you can start so easily. Just scan where your breath stops. Oftentimes, this type of struggle comes with the fact that a person doesn't breathe beyond. For example, they breathe like this. Beneath here, nothing moves. Nothing ever gets this pump. Sometimes there's nodule here, sometimes there's nodule lower in the belly. Like, for example, whole belly will be like engorged from breathing, but then lower belly is tucked in. Breath must move the pelvic floor. And breathe like gradually, softly, deeply. And then there also practice, I would suggest you practice giant. Giant is a practice in which you get comfortable, you stand up on your feet, standing in a stable fashion, or you sit down, and then you close your eyes, and with breathing, you start feeling. Imagine like an inflatable toy, some like child's toy or balloon. As you inhale, you imagine how air spreads everything in your body. Like it fills your fingers, it fills your fingertips, and like it fills your toes, forehead, head, everything. Feel the air on each inhalation fill you up. And you allow the air to actually expand you from within as you imagine it. On exhalation, you kind of retain in that shape. You just relax. Don't notice relax. Don't feel anything. Don't even think about the exhalation. But each inhale fills you up. And through this practice, you may find yourself very nicely grounded and with kind of filled in metaphysical perception of yourself. You will connect the two. So experiment with that. Do you smoke? No, I don't smoke. I actually never smoked anything. I cannot deny my feelings for you. My heart belongs to you, separated by oceans, by brought together by fate. I appreciate that. Is that message for me? Louise is asking. Yeah, I agree with your definition of dominance. It makes relationships difficult when you view that as the only way to be safe in relationships. Thank you. Luis, this may sound cliche, but if you can find an opportunity to help other people, it may well help in bringing you back to yourself also. Oh yeah, by the way, that's another thing. Just journeying through the ego may be quite limiting as well. And again, my whole thing is human renaissance. Human renaissance is about giving, it's creatorship. The channel of giving and receiving must be cleared. And that can, the creativity, leadership, and giving may also be a super cool thing. When you feel how you influence the world, like even in some little things. This is a super enhancement of your belonging, sense of belonging, because God also is felt as belonging. That there is something above me, something bigger than me, where I belong, where I exist in some framework. So giving to people indeed can help. What do you think of passport bros? Don't think about them much, but I guess I don't know. Different people do it for different reasons. I don't know. As a phenomenon, if I was to like take some influencer who, for example, made it their entire philosophy that men should go and find women from other countries because women from other countries are different. No BS, but if someone happened to marry internationally, then okay. But passport bros, if they regard women as something utilitarian, then I mean it's on them. They will get their fair share of troubles related to that, related to objectification of the person that they're most intimately related to. Because if they settle for these relationships, it means that this is their language of love to objectify, which means that they themselves will be reading objectification as some norm, but then they will suffer from that because their deepest need for attachment will not be fulfilled. So this is a very twisted thing. It depends on human intentions and what they're actually doing with that. Luis is saying that they're seeing a doctor on their sleep as they start to fix this, or him, sorry. As he starts to fix this, so at least I'm moving forward. Okay. This Luis says that he wishes he was as smart as me, right? He has a bachelor's degree, but hardly passed. I mean, it's if you're just judging by the degrees, it doesn't say anything. I can listen to her talk about anything. Thank you. If I get a PhD, could I get a... What? Like you? Okay, then, Luis, has it occurred to you that you might be better off getting yourself where you need to be before you go hunting for a mate? Why worry about your beard when your head is about to be taken? That's that's an interesting concept about whether you need to fix yourself before finding someone. It can happen in the process. I think it's important to at least acknowledge where you want to be and what you want to do. Because sometimes, I mean, you can get sucked into working on yourself and then wait for eternity and then kind of lose touch with certain things. I don't know. It's an interesting question because relationships will anyways actually challenge you for something. It's rare that you meet a person and everything is just flawless on the first attempt. Relationships, if you don't have like mega full grip on your life, if you are not like super mega worked through person, who is hardly possible in the real world. If you're not that, relationships will always challenge you on something and will always make you find something in you. But picking a relationship from a very dark corridor, dark tunnel of your life may also not be a good idea. So there is a balance where on this path you start pursuing relationships with others. But bring yourself to at least, some level of health and with clarity of intentions primarily towards the other person is very important, I think. But seeking perfection, I don't think that it's a viable idea for most people. Now, cutie pie, you see I didn't pass the test. If I get a PhD, could I get a cutie pie girlfriend like you? Woohoo! I don't know, it's also, again, it's another external thing. I don't think that, I think, again, it all boils down not to PhDs, not to, not to what affiliation you have politically, culturally, socially. It boils down to returning inside and actually find the core thing. The ability to live from inside, to breathe your life, to be in this alignment. Sister, thanks for this. I found the conversation most interesting. I need to scoot, but I hope to catch you again. Have a nice and tranquil weekend. Thanks so much. It was really interesting. Thank you so much for your valuable contributions. Luis says, Yeah, knowing where I want to be or where I want to go is what I mean when I said I lost God. Um, where you want to be and where you want to go is there and then. I want you to, we're actually going to wrap up soon, and I want you to get from this conversation probably the most essential thing is to feel yourself now, primarily. Because when you feel yourself now, the anxiety about the destination and direction fades. When you can always return in the here and now in this internal paradise, you will find the easy and beautiful path that fully aligns with you. And you will be coming from the point of authenticity that is very comfortable, that is effortless, that has this very high level of energy that draws people, that draws a lot of beauty, that draws a lot of good feedback from the world to you. So this is what I want you to extract from our conversation today. What is past affiliations? What is past there and then? What is here and now? This is where you will reconnect with your concept of God. This is where you will reconnect with your body. This is where you will identify your discomforts and such. And actually, I should post this on my website. I have a couple of very good meditations that are body oriented, body and mind connecting. And I want probably to put this on my website, rawformoflife.com, because that's something where you can start. Because if you live, for example, in a perpetual state of stress, disconnect, what happens is that when you start relaxing yourself, when you start getting some baseline relaxation and comfort, you will start being more aware of the problems that exist. Because when a person is habitually in high level of stress and this disconnect, how can you identify the problem when everything feels like a buzzing cloud? It's really difficult. You need to start somewhere. And the body is the best place to start. So right now, without any external input, you can do any breathing practice just to get back to the body. Just to get, breathing is how we feel alive. This is the exchange with the world that happens all the time. Through this breathing, let the life go through you. Let it fill you. Let it work in your body. Let it pulse through you. Just feel the ease. And I suggest, by the way, for everyone who's watching, all of those simplest practices will be 1,000 times better. Listen to the simplest thing when you have a timer. Set the timer for 3 minutes, like how much you can sit without anxiety and focus. 3 minutes, 1 minute, 30 seconds. Set the timer for this comfortable chunk of time. Forget about everything. Your control is now in the timer. Your control is gone. The timer is doing the trick. So you, to wrap up to the beginning of the conversation, you're fully experiential and you're just breathing. Your purpose right now is just to do breathing. 30 seconds, 1 minute, 2 minutes, 3, 5, however much is comfortable. All control, all observers on the timer. You're only breathing. Start there. Luis, this is my recommendation for you. Relationships take hard work. That's why it's called a commitment. You can reframe it in any way you want. Commitment is for political relationships. Nowadays, we can form relationships on any terms you want, if you're not bound by the political incentives. Aloha from Hawaii. Hi from New York. When did you start live streaming? Not today, live streaming in general. I started live streaming the other day. I just felt like it. I had such an urge to live stream because I started putting all of those short videos that are under 3 minutes long. But then every time I post, I feel like I want to talk much more, and I embrace live conversations so much more. It's much more interesting. Because even in the comments, sometimes we just try to like figure out some snippet of the issue. But I have so many things that I could discuss. Live stream, I just love beyond measure. And I felt urge to do that for several weeks, and then I just gave it. So I want to stick with this because I really enjoy it. Okay, to you, I'll write down my phone. Yeah, super cool. And yeah, timer to not have control, and you're just breathing. And then you see where this journey will lead you to. Aloha from Hawaii. Hi from New York. When did you start live streaming? Not today, live streaming in general. I started live streaming the other day. I just felt like it. I had such an urge to live stream because even in the comments, sometimes we just try to like figure out some snippet of the issue. But I have so many things that I could discuss. Live stream, I just love beyond measure. And I felt urge to do that for several weeks, and then I just gave it. So I want to stick with this because I really enjoy it. Okay, to you, I'll write down my phone. Yeah, super cool. And yeah, timer to not have control, and you're just breathing. And then you see where this journey will lead you to. Um, so live stream in terms of our schedule, I am going to try doing it every other day. And right now I'm going to wrap up. Thank you everyone who joined. Thank you everyone for interesting conversations. If you want to subscribe to my channel to not miss the next live stream and prepare your questions, let's do it. And I will see you next time. Human Renaissance, rawformoflife.com. You can always book a session with me. First session is off, first RFL, code on checkout, and we can work together. Also use my YouTube resources. I have a lot of stuff there, a lot of videos. If you want to meet me better, if you want to learn about me better, then go through my YouTube. And good conversation, girls. See you. Bye bye. Thank you. But yeah, so go on my website. I have Instagram, art Instagram. I have Wonderlander, where I post my clothing designs and photographs. So see you next time. Bye bye.